Hey guys, thanks for tuning in and welcome to my Surfer Girl earrings video. This little design is so cute. I'm really enjoying making getting back to the basics of seed beading. That really got me started. And it's just so fun to revisit techniques that are tried and true, but trying them out with new beads and mixing it up in new ways and adding little interest elements that are, at least new to me, like putting a little charm. And so in this design, I was going to show you how I made these. And what is on my mat here are all the supplies that I used, with the exception of the beading needle, which is just right over here. I'm using a size 11 beading needle with some size B beading thread. And you can use any color you'd like. This is, I believe, a nutmeg Miyuki thread. There's a lot of other varieties out there like 1G and KO. Those are all going to work very nicely. And I'm using the Ocean and Sky mix, which was designed by myself and Carol Carmen Jewelry, as a feature for my shop. This is our July mix, and it's really beautiful. It has a bunch of Miyuki Edo, and it has just kind of a mix of regular size 8 seed beads with hex beads, and that gives it a lot of extra sparkle, and you can see that really shine in a design like this where they stand out and they really pop. I also have on the mat some size 15s, and these are also available in my shop. I currently still have some left, and they are a frosted matte topaz. This color is also in the mix, so it really complements. I have a bar finding. This is a Nun Design half moon finding. I have a charm, little moon charm, ear wire, and these I'm working with are 4mm fire polish beads. I kind of just dumped them into my mix. They don't come in the mix. They're sold as a strand, also in my shop, but I was working with the first earring and I broke the strand up for that. And so I just kind of threw them in. So that's why you're seeing them in there. But I'll be working with them as the bottom. All right, so let's get started. To begin, you're going to want to cut about, a whole wingspan, about 75 to 80 inches of beading thread, and then go ahead and put your needle on and fold it over. And you'll probably want to fold over quite a lot because we're going to be at first doing the brick stitch row, and so it's nice to have a little shorter length to work with. So I folded over probably the first 20 inches after putting my needle on, and I got it going to right about there. And let me move this stuff out of the way really quick. Just gonna set it next to me here. And you're just gonna need, for the moment, you won't need the 15s. We won't need those till we start the fringe. But what you're gonna need is start selecting for these topaz colors. So I'm just dumping this out on the mat. It's my bead mat here. Okay. So with the other end of your thread, so the thread that's not attached to your needle, so the other side, and leaving about 5 to 7 inches of a tail, you want to tie that onto the finding in a double knot. Oops. Here we go. So just like this. And I'm just kind of eyeballing my tail. I'm giving it about, that looks like about a little more than 5 inches or so. And it doesn't matter if your knot slides around because we can move that on the finding. So just keep focused on how tight you get the knot versus where it is. All right, so there's the other side of my knot. And I'm going to slide it to be on the edge of the finding. So just right there. And now select a topaz size 8 seed bead from the mix, or if you're working this in your own colors, whatever color you would like to do is totally great. And then just bring this through. This is the tail thread that I've got in my hand now that I'm bringing it through the seed bead. And I'm just going to pull the bead down. And I like to do that to start my brick stitch. This is just a little tip for how to hide your knot. So the knot now is inside the bead. Mostly. It's a big bead, so this is really effective with size 11s because it really nestles that bead over the knot, but fundamentally that's what I'm trying to do, is just get that all. And it's also tightening and securing everything at the start. And so now I'm going to get another one. So another size 8 seed bead. And I'm going to bring that behind the component, the needle. And what I like to do is I just kind of hold everything in place with my fingers and push it through. Again, it's coming through the component. And then hold everything with your hand while you pull that long strand. It's going to take a while because at the beginning we've got a lot of thread here. And then just come up through that bead and notice the direction that I'm coming up through it. It's from what I call the underside of the bead, coming up through the bead. I call it that because we were headed down with the thread. You see the thread coming out. So we're going up through the bead now. And we'll tighten everything again once this last loop tightens on the component. So there they both are. You just want to push that over and tighten everything up one more time. So there is our first two beads on the finding. And now what we want to do is we want to get a total of 10 on this bar. So we're just going to keep picking up the same color bead and go behind the component. And my thread just wrapped around it, so just ignore that. And then again up through the bead. And pull tight. And let's do that one more time together. And I'm still using that same frosted topaz. And then I've got the bead on the needle here. See how I'm holding it? And then just bringing the needle against my finger and then through the component here. And I'm pressing now with my finger to keep the needle there, which is keeping the thread tight once I pull the needle through and keeping my bead from going, following the thread through, right? We want it to stay up there. If your thread does this like mine's been doing, just help it. And there you go. See how it almost sits right where you want it? And before I let go of anything, I'll just go ahead and bring that needle right back up through the bead. And I'll carry on with pulling all that thread through. And I don't let go until right before I lock it down. So let's put 6 more beads on here just like that. And here we go. So there's all 10 beads. And so for the next row, what we're going to do is another row of brick stitch using the same color. And the reason for doing that is I find that it makes my fringe tighter. It also tightens up the first row on the component to support this weight that we're going to have from all the strands of the fringe. So I always like to do a second row of brick stitch, even though, it's not required. You could go right into the fringe right now and just have 10 strands. But I liked the idea of having 11 so I could have a center point for my charm. So I'm going to show you how to put the second row on now. And it's really easy to do. And what I did is I picked up 2 beads. So here's 2, forgive me, same color. And I'm going to go underneath the thread bridge of the last 2 beads that we attached to the finding. See how that works? I'm just going right under that thread bridge. 2 beads on the needle. And so they're going to sit kind of like that. And they're loose and everything. But what you want to do is bring your needle through the second bead. And kind of just like when we were on the component, we're coming back up from under it. We're heading through it in the direction that that thread was coming out. And it'll stay loose like that until you tighten everything down. And what I like to do is get my thumb and just hold everything in place for one last little tighten. And it should pop right into place for you, just like that. And so for the rest of the row, all you want to do is just keep going. But from here out, you're just going to be adding 1 bead to each thread bridge. And if you're like me and you're right-handed, you may feel more comfortable flipping the work this way. So if you see me doing that, it's sometimes if it's got a pattern, it's confusing, but luckily for this one, it is completely symmetrical, same counts. So flipping it won't really change what you're doing. But you want to watch that if you are doing a patterned one. And so I picked up one bead, and I'm going up to the next thread bridge here. You can see it's the second one that we had on our row. And I've just got, again, one bead on the needle. And bring all of that thread through. We will need this thread later. We'll be happy to have it, even though it's kind of a pain now. Will save us adding thread. All right. So just like that. Next thread bridge, add another bead. So let's complete this row just like that. All you got to do is pick up a bead, go under the next thread bridge. When we get to the last one, we're going to need to do an extra bead here, and I'll stop the camera and show you when we get there. So here's the 10th bead, and again, all I've done is just one for one with each of those thread bridges, adding a bead to each one. And now here I'm at the end, and you see you've got kind of a little bit of a lopsided finish, and if you remember, we're going for 11 strands of fringe, so we need one more bead. And so pick up one more, and then all you got to do is just find that thread bridge, the same one we used for the last bead. Go under it. If you can't see it, don't worry, just go through in between the two beads from the back like that and pull that thread through. When you do that, it will actually find the thread bridge. See what's happening back here? Let me show you really quick. See, it pops right up and it caught it. And this bead will shift to the side after we come up through it. So here's from the front. Again, you see we caught the thread bridge that way. So we know we got it. And we're going to come up through that bead that we just added. Super long strand. There we go. We could even tighten that just a little. So you should have that. And then if you'd like, you can take your tail thread, the one that started, as the knot in the first step, and you can bring it up through that bead. And it gives you just an extra distance from your knot. We'll probably trim that. I'll trim it after we do our first fringe strand so that it doesn't, for example, if I was to trim it now, after we do our first strand of fringe and I'm coming back through that bead, sometimes it can work the little tail out. So I like to do the trimming after just in case, right? And I might even weave it through a few beads. Let me show you when we get there. But typically I actually just kind of ignore it until the end unless it's really driving me crazy. So, but you can definitely trim it. Just I would at least wait till after your first strand. Okay, so let's talk about the fringe strand. So I don't have it with me now because I haven't made it yet, but by the time this video is up, I will have done a pattern for you. So all you have to do is download that little pattern. It'll be a PDF linked in the description, and it'll have all these counts, so you can just read it from there. But basically the gist of it, it's pretty easy to remember. It's the same for all the strands, is that I'm going to start with a size 15 seed bead. And then I'm working a pattern that uses the limestone and then another 15. Everything's going to be spaced with a 15 throughout every single bead. It goes from limestone to bronze, to the rose hex beads, back to bronze and back to limestone. Then it starts a new color with the lighter turquoise, 2 of those. Then it goes to the dark turquoise, 1 of those. A hex bead for sparkle in the middle, and then it works ombre back out. So dark to light and then back to the beige, doing that bronze repeat 1 more time. You see the bronze one up here? It just repeats again down there. Limestone, bronze, rose, bronze, limestone. Here at the bottom is another of the topaz. So just going for a topaz bead there. Again, everything is spaced with a 15-0. Then I did a 4mm fire polish, a 15-0 seed bead, and we skip that 15 and we come right all the way back up. So let's do that one together, that strand. And I'm going to slide the mat over so you can see me doing the beads, but it does make the camera a little fuzzy, so I'll slide it back when we do the next step. Okay, so, and one of the things that I find tricky is I always forget to pick up my 15s. So just, we're watching for, I either pick up none or too many. I'll have 2 or 0. So it's a test of mindfulness is what it really feels like to me a lot of the time with fringe. So there's my 15 and a limestone, a 15 and a bronze. 15 and a beautiful one of these rose ones. And then back to bronze and limestone. So each one we're just skipping with a 15 in between. These super long strands, the good news is at every new one it gets shorter, but it's at first a little bit challenging to get it going. So there are two colors in this mix. If you're working with my mix, there's a light and a dark turquoise. So you want to start with the light and do 2 of those. And then you want to go to the dark one. And then put on one of the sparkles. Okay, and then we're just going to work that back out in reverse, which is back to a dark one, lighter turquoise, 2 times. So that's the next flow. I kind of grouped them into like color block flows is what I was trying to do, which gave it an ocean wave look and sand with, it was just really cool the way it came out. And so here's limestone again. Again, I'm trying to remember to put that 15-0 in between each one. It does help if you're doing kind of like a little staging like this where you can just glance at it, especially when you're adding the next one. You can see if it's the same as the one before it. It helps catch errors in the moment. Nothing worse than finding a fringe error 4 strands off from it, right? Who hasn't had that happen? Here's the bronze. So I'm just doing the same thing here. The limestone. And then I need a topaz. And here's where I'm going to put on a fire polish bead and end that with a 15-0. You see all of that is spaced with a 15. Got that beige one there. And then when you get to this spot right here, just take a look at it. Let me slide this over. And error check it with your pattern. So just hold the pattern next to it. And then I also wanted to say, it's only a mistake if it's not consistent. So if you wanted to do something different, go for it. And then just make sure all the ones match, and then it's the new way, right? So it doesn't actually have to be like these counts, but I thought they were cute. And so that's what I was doing with this design. And then you want to skip the last 15. And then just go back up through the beads. And one thing I will warn you about when you're working with the 15s, they make the size 8 seed beads so flowy. And so they're absolutely essential, but they're a little easy to miss when you're coming back through the pass through making your fringe. So just, you know, go slow, take a look at it. It helps if you hold it up. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go through a bunch of these. Probably I can get through all of them here. I'll like hold it up here, and it's hard to show you on the camera, but I'm kind of looking at it from this angle to see if any dangle down. Because if you've missed them, they'll fall, and you'll see that. Or you'll see your thread is a little higher than the bead, and that'll be prominent to you if you're looking at it with some gravity helping. So I have gotten through all of them, so I'm going to keep going. And you'll have kind of a bit of a tangly mess here, especially for a few rounds. Grab that 15-0 that was the bottom bead, and just hold it. Go ahead and pull those through. Get that tail out of the way. And so what you want to do at the top here, and I haven't tightened this up just yet. I will right when I get through the next step. But what you want to do is go through the bead, this one here on the edge. Just going to go through that first one. And forgive me, I lost my needle really quick. Okay. So you want to go through just that bead. Okay. And just watching out for tangles. Okay. So now I'm just through this bead here. And I'm going to pinch that 15-0 again. And this is our chance to make that fringe not too tight, but tightish, right? And then just pull on that. If it's doing this little swirly thing on you, it's too tight. But you can just kind of run your fingers down it. And that's right there, probably just about perfect tension. And so from there, once you're happy with that tension, lock it in by doing this, going down through the next bead in the row. Just right here. And this is easier to work flat than it would be if I held it up tension-wise, because it would put weight on the fringe. So I'm just going to work it like this. And just make sure you're still happy with the tension that you've got. And there you go. And so yeah, if you'd like now, you can trim the tail. And if not, you can just, you know, carry on and weave it in later. From here, we want to repeat what we just did right to the middle. And so we want to work, we just worked this strand. We want to work 1, 2, 3, 4 more. And when we work the one after that, what is basically the 6th strand in from the side, with that one, we're going to do an extra step to add the charm. Now, if you, I'll show you when I get there doing that step. If you, for some reason, just found yourself going to the end and finishing it, that's okay too. You can weave back and add the charm. So there's more than one way to do it. But I'm going to go ahead and repeat what I did here. Adding strands. Remember to step down to the next one after, and we'll turn the camera back on then when I get to right about there in the middle. Same steps we did. All right, here we are. I have the 6th strand ready to go, and I'm going to go ahead and do the normal step of just coming right back up through it, and being careful not to miss any of my size 15s that are in between the beads. And that did happen a couple times when I was doing these other ones. And I had to pull them apart and find it. But just, you know, if you look really closely at this spot right here, you know, you can see if there's any that you've missed. So just, you know, going slow is usually the ticket there. Go ahead and come up through that bead just as normal. We're not doing anything different just yet. Just a normal fringe strand, just bringing that on. Okay, so from here, the way that I attach the charm is it is dangling right from that middle bead there. And the bead it's dangling from is the one in our 2nd row of brick stitch. So to get there, we're going to need to make some turns. And again, you can do that now or you can do it at the end when you finish your fringe. But I did it actually in the moment when I was stitching it. So I kind of had a plan as I was going. So from here, we're exiting out of that bead where we just came up for our fringe, and I'm going to choose a side. It doesn't actually matter which side you choose. And go ahead and just come up through the bead above. See how we're coming out of this one here, and we're just going through one of the ones that's above it in the top row of brick stitch. And just pull that through. Go through the component. And just go ahead and flip it so you can see what you're doing here, the back side. And go ahead and come down through the same bead, just from the other side. And it's a little tricky, so just gently, not snagging the thread. There we go. And then through the bead where our fringe strand is coming from. So from here we want to grab our charm. And then one other thing I wanted to mention is it doesn't actually matter which side you choose to put the charm on, but whichever side you do is going to become your front. And so if it matters to you what direction your moons are facing, you can lay the other earring here now and make a decision now. Do you want your moon to go opposite way, same way? I actually don't mind either way. I think it looks cute. So you can match it or you can do it. But what you choose now, we're kind of stuck with. So you got to figure out which one you like and go with it. So I think I'm gonna go with opposite maybe. I liked going the same direction, but then opposite would be cute. So come up through the charm. And what you'll want to do is go through the bead that you're exiting. So the same one we were coming up through for when we finish that middle fringe strand, we're going to come right up through that bead. Right here. And pull that tight. Try not to catch any of your fringe. And the bead will hang out a little bit loose right now. Don't worry about that. Okay, so before I chose to go through this bead and loop around the finding, I'm going to go through this one now just to kind of even it out. And my needle ended up going back behind the finding. That's okay. Go ahead and just pull that all through. And then I'll just come up from behind it through. And I'm going to come around and back down through that bead. There we go. From here, I'm going to reinforce the connection with my charm. I'm going to go down through this bead again. Okay, and again, I'm just going to assess what direction my charm is facing. It's going to be this way, right? So I'm going to come up through the charm and continue up through the bead that the 6th fringe strand is coming out of. Okay, from here we just need to start the next fringe strand here. But we're headed this way right now, so we want to turn. And the best way to make that turn is just to grab the thread bridge above that bead. The best way to get that without being able to see it is just take your needle and poke it right in between the 2 beads that are above the one you're trying to turn into. So just come right down in between. And see what happens when I do that. It just kind of brings the thread up like that. And just pull. And now you know you've got that thread bridge. Easier to see from this side, but what we're going to do is come right up through that same bead. And then come over here, down to the next one, same thing again. And I'm going to catch the thread bridge by just going through the 2. Turn the work to the front here. So that's one way you could do it. But then the gist of it is that we made some turns so that we could exit back and forth out of that middle bead. And on 2 occasions we used the bar. And then when we were trying to get over here, we just did a hop, skip, and a jump thread bridges back up to this one, right? And back around. And so that is how, that's how you can get to where you can start your next strand. So from here, all you need to do is string the rest of the strands, exactly like we did for these. And if you want to get rid of this now, you can just trim it right away, or what I do is I go ahead and I put my needle on, and because this loose little side here can be reinforced a little bit better if I weave in, I am going to go ahead and do that. And I'm using the same trick from before where, see, I go through the beads like that at the top just to get my thread bridge. Pop right down, and then back down through the same bead. Try not to catch the fringe. I'll do it one more time, and then I'm going to cut this thread. So like that, right between those 2. And down through the bead. And I think this is where I will trim it. If you have a thread burner, go ahead and use that thread burner now. You can use scissors if you don't have a thread burner. So just grab the scissors and pull up on the thread. See, so that it's lifting the piece. Push down with the scissors against it, like this. And it helps. A little trick that I learned from the ladies at Bead Shop. They taught me that. It's pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to finish my strands, and then I'm going to show you one more weaving in, and we're all set with our earring. All right, so here we are at the end, yay! And I've got the last strand already strung. And so I'm just going to go ahead and go all the way up through this bead, the beads, I mean. There we go. And I was careful not to skip any of those 15s. Once again, I'm just going to hold that bottom bead, pull that tightly through. All right, so from here, it's the same process. I just want to show it one more time for weaving in. And if you're working with an extra long needle, so I wanted to share this really quick. When I do my bead weaving for Fringe, I have a longer-ish needle. And you can, when you buy your needles, sometimes they're labeled as shorts or long. This was a long one, or at least it's on the longer side. It's one of my longer needles that I've got. I'm going to switch to a shorter one just to show you, because I'm a little low on thread. If you're not low on thread like me, then you'll be okay. But I don't think I cut a full 80, 85 inches. I think I cut more like 70 by accident. I would say at least you want to go 75 or 80. You'll just have a little more to work with it here at the end. But I'm still good. So I got that. Came up through this bead. Fringe is exactly, tension-wise, exactly what I wanted. So let's go ahead and weave in. So it can't hurt to have a little bit, you know, of thread showing over the other thread on the bar if you want to go through the top bead here. So I think that's what I'm going to do. But then I'll just need to use the bar to turn by coming through the component down over the front, just like that. And we'll head through the bead. So there's one. And I'm going to come down through here. This is just kind of, you know, arbitrary, just wherever you feel like. We're just trying to make some turns. I think I'll do a thread bridge here. So I'll just go between the component. Sorry, between the beads and the component there, right? Trick for catching the thread bridge and back down. Same bead. I'm going to do that one more time into the next bead. There we go. Right through this one. Oops. See, a little short, so my needles are coming off, but I did get that thread bridge, so let's just pop that back on there really quick. All right. I think that's probably pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and trim it here. I'm on the back side of the earring right now. Again, that's pushing down and pulling up. Okay, and there we go. So just arrange everything so it's nice and pretty. Okay, I'm going to pop the ear wire on there. Got my ear wire here. And some pliers. There we go. These ear wires are also available in my shop. They're from Nun Design. They're really pretty. And I did end up going with a reverse direction with my charm there. So they're going to face me when I'm wearing them. So I'll have a moon on each side. Or they could be facing out if you wore them on the other ears. But I kind of was looking at them like that. So there you go. They're all set. These are the Surfer Girl earrings. Again, it is featuring a mix that Carol Carmen Jewelry and I designed called Ocean and Sky. And the mix is right here. Beautiful Edo Miyuki mix. The little fire polish you're seeing in there are not part of the mix. They're just, I was just throwing them in the bowl here because they are sold separately in my shop. They're 4mm. This is the turquoise green. It's like a dark green. There's other colors too, which would look stunning on this, by the way. Finding also is available in my shop, and it is available in 3 finishes. It's the gold here. There's also copper and silver. You can find it on DanielleWickesJewelry.com and just click on shop. All right. I hope you enjoyed this video. Also check the description for a link to the PDF pattern. And have a good rest of your day. Thanks, guys. Bye.